Good morning. Welcome to another edition of Sree's Sunday New York Times Readalong. This is a special community read-along. That's why you see the Digimentors logo on the screen. My name is Neil Parekh. I am the executive producer and occasional guest host of the show. We're here in Hawley, Pennsylvania, where Digimentors is holding a retreat. So this will be a community read-along. You'll have about 8 cameos that we'll be getting from our Digimentors colleagues. We're live on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and our Digimentors website. Thank you so much for joining us. This is going to be a little different show. I'm not in my usual red chair at home. We're masked up for safety, so all of the guests will be wearing their N95 masks as well. So sit back, relax. We got a great show planned. Let's go ahead and show you a little preview of what's to come. This week, we are hosting a special edition of Sree's Sunday New York Times Read-Along. We are back to featuring the New York Times, but with a twist. We will have cameos from several Digimentors colleagues. Our guests will include Paula Kiger, Steve Taylor, Andrew Lee, Jenny Lazarus, Robert Anthony, Steffen Kaplan, Rose Horowitz, and Yoyce Jones. We will ask each of them to choose an article to discuss. It's a community read-along. We are gathered here in Hawley, Pennsylvania at the Settlers Inn for a company retreat. One of the items we will review is a special section on museums. We regularly feature the print edition of the Sunday New York Times. Occasionally, we highlight other publications, most recently, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and the Philadelphia Inquirer, but also the Washington Post, the Chicago Sun-Times, the Dallas Morning News, Politico, the Globe and Mail, and the Collegian Times. The show is produced by Digimentors. We produce high-quality virtual and hybrid events for organizations big and small around the world. We also do social and digital consulting, training, and workshops. Sree Srinivasan is our host. I am the executive producer, Neil Parekh. Our production team includes Paula Kiger, Steve Taylor, Julia Weeks, and Carla Baranakis. Again, this week we are hosting a special community read-along featuring several of our Digimentors colleagues, live on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and our Digimentors website. There you go. So that's a little bit of a taste of what's to come in today's show. And we're just trying to get the right lighting here. Again, my name is Neil Parekh, and this is a special Sree Sunday New York Times read-along. It'll be a community read-along. A lot of our colleagues from Digimentors will be taking a look at specific articles. What we're going to do is we're having them come in one by one and highlight something that got their attention. It was of interest to them. So let's take a look at who's already watching, who's already checked in. We have a number of people who have already said hello. Let's see, Patricia Freudenberg from New York. Thank you, Patricia. Always great to see you. Let's get a different angle on the room here. And Jonathan, greetings from the East Village. Thank you. So nice. He said, so nice to see you all together again for the first time. This is our first Digimentors retreat, so we're really thrilled about that. Doug Levy joining us from San Francisco. Thank you, Doug. Diane Stefani. What a fabulous idea to see and hear from the awesome behind-the-scenes Digimentors team. Go New York Times Read-Along, tuning in from Margate, New Jersey. Thank you, Diane. Gunter is joining us from Vienna, Austria. Thank you, Gunter. Always great to see an international audience watching. Miriam Berkeley from Hell's Kitchen, New York. Ken Fisher.
Token Engineer Ken from Iowa. Groovy format today. Thank you. We'll see what we can do with it. And my mom saying hello from Hastings on Hudson. Have a great time on the retreat. We actually are at the tail end of the retreat. We're going to be doing a few things this morning after the read-along, but I want to give you just a sense of what we've been enjoying. We're at the Settlers Inn here in Hawley, Pennsylvania. Great restaurant that we ate at last night, right on the water. Check out this view, this shot taken by my colleague, Steffen Kaplan. Just a great view this morning on the water. So thank you to everyone watching. Just want to give you a sense of what we were enjoying while we were here. Therese Steiner, bonjour from Yonkers. Thank you, Therese. Remember, we are live on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and our Digimentors website. Please let us know where you're watching from. Please remember to like, comment, share, retweet, and tag your friends so they can watch as well. Bob watching from New Jersey. Ellen watching from the Upper East Side. And it's great. So nice to meet you all. So it's really great. And it was great for us to meet. We actually hadn't met a lot of people in person. If you can imagine, Paula has been producing the New York Times Read-Along for 2 years now, every day, every Sunday rather, as I've been producing behind the scenes. And Friday was the very first time I'd met her in person. The same could be said for a lot of our Digimentors colleagues. And right on cue, there's Paula saying hello from right outside that door. We'll get to her in just a few minutes. Tammy is watching from the Upper East Side. Thank you, Tammy. And so what we're going to do, we're going to go through the paper like we usually do. We're going to see the sections, take a look at the front page sections, and then we'll bring in our colleagues one by one. Again, this is a great show. My name is Neil Parekh, and I'm the executive producer and guest host. I'm also the VP of Events and Communications at Digimentors. So thank you again for joining us today. So let's take a look at the paper, and we'll go through each section, as I mentioned. Looking at the front page sections, we won't spend a lot of time, but we'll just give you a sense of what is on tap for today. The big story on the front page of the New York Times, this piece on Tucker Carlson, headline, American Nationalist, how Tucker Carlson stoked white fear to conquer cable news. That's the display story. It's an interesting three-part story. All three parts are online. Part one is today. Part two is going to be in tomorrow's paper. The lead, of course, is on the right-hand side. There are two, both dealing with Ukraine and Putin. Putin redeploys troops in attempt to recapture momentum in Ukraine, and you can see that. And the other thing I'll note is just we have a slightly different setup. When I'm home, I'm using the pencil cam, and we just have the space for one top half of the paper. This is how longtime viewers will remember. This is how we usually lay out the paper with each section. So it's kind of nice to go back old school. Bottom of the front page. In vetting New York's #2 Hochul's team missed red flags. Interesting. So we're talking about the lieutenant governor, and I remember seeing he was in some legal trouble earlier. Grieving in Afghanistan. Rungan, 30, lost his wife and 3 daughters in an airstrike by Pakistan, which is targeting militants along the border. And then outsized mogul, outsized debt, the math of the Twitter deal. This is the Elon Musk deal. And I need to catch up on the story. I remember when he announced that he was going to buy it and figuring out the financing, I thought I remember seeing a note that he was going to rescind his offer. So we'll have to catch up to see what's going on with that. So let's see who a couple other people have said hi so far. Ron Thomas, our friend from Verona, New Jersey, or he's in Verona, New Jersey, usually in the Middle East. Ron, thank you as always for joining us. Steffen Kaplan saying good morning to the New York Times Read-Along family. Steffen Kaplan is also just outside that door. He'll be joining us in a little bit. And Ron Thomas, of course, referring to the A-team, our production team. Thank you as always, Ron. Really appreciate that. And Paula is putting in a link to the Tucker Carlson article. That's what's special about the show is we annotate the show and give you the links if you want to read them later. I definitely encourage you to check out the Tucker Carlson piece. It is really interactive, a multimedia event. So let's set that aside for a moment. Sunday Styles, a mighty mane. The complex hairdo of the NBA player Trae Young has been debated, dissed, and memed. And then Fellowship of the Larger Rings. One size does not fit them all, so some designers are making bigger bands for bigger digits. Interesting, this conversation about hair. If you watched last week's show, Ernie Suggs from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution had a very moving piece about afros and his connection to them and their history. Here's a special section. We're really looking forward to seeing this. It's a thick section on museums with a quote at the top. We want to break the myth that museums are only for certain kinds of people. Claudio Rodriguez, Bronx Museum of the Arts. That's the quote right there, if you can pick that up. So we'll definitely take a look at that. Art seeks new life. Museums look for new artists, new audiences, and new ways of thinking about exhibits as they face a rapidly changing, more inclusive but distracted world. Sunday business, the office beckons. So what are we wearing now? Power casual is a new buzzword in retail for work clothing, but interpretations vary. I mean, we spent the last 2 years at home, most people in soft pants. The whole idea of putting on even jeans is a challenge for some, much less actually slacks and khakis. This New York Times Magazine article the cover story looks really good. In 1992, I was a young reporter at the LA Times when the city erupted in violence. 30 years later, I'm still trying to figure out what happened and what didn't. By Hector Tobar. A great photograph for the cover. Just really have to check that out later. So that's what we have on tap on that side. Over here, we have Sunday Review. This is about J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance wants to be the patron saint of Trumpism. Interesting way they ran the headline around his head, almost like a halo. Arts and Leisure. All she wanted to do and more. Sheryl Crow carved her own path in music. Now she's telling her story in a documentary. So that's the Art and Leisure cover about Sheryl Crow. Now what's nice for me is that I don't usually get to see the real estate section. We got the paper. It's an early edition, but it looks like it must be a New York area edition since we're in Northeast Pennsylvania. So we get to see a real estate section, Hidden in a Beach House, The Sounds of Love and Loss. You can see all these cassette tapes. Music provided solace during the AIDS epidemic, and newly discovered cassette tapes captured 2 decades of parties and pain. Metropolitan, another section we don't get to see in the DC area. Without its hub, and industry regroups. Companies in the textile building lost their showrooms when it was sold, but a new district is emerging. And then here's a YouTube polyglot tries out his Yiddish in Brooklyn. The last section that we'll take a look at, the book review. Who Killed Louis LaPrince? Leah Greenblatt on Paul Fisher's True Crime Tale, the man who invented motion pictures. And you can see 3 rows of shots from film footage. So that's going to be interesting as well. So there you have it. That's the front page of all the sections. Again, we are going to be reviewing today's paper with our Digimentors colleagues. We will be taking a look at what they want to pick out, what stories caught their attention. So we're definitely looking forward to that. We'll be joined shortly. We'll be joined shortly by Paula Kiger, Steve Taylor, Andrew Lee, Jenny Lazarus, Robert Anthony, and Steffen Kaplan. And followed that by Rose Horowitz and Yoyce Jones. So let's go ahead and see whether we can find Paula Kiger outside and bring her in and see what she wants to take a look at. So we'll go out here, and Paula's right here waiting at the door.
Hi.
Paula, good to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, great to be here. Hi, everybody.
Most folks don't get to see Paula on camera. Paula is one of our producers, putting in links So everyone say hi to Paula and drop a comment in. First time to see her. This is a first. I don't think you've been on the read along before, right?
Once a very long time ago, I talked about a blog post of mine, but this is the first official.
Great. Well, come on in.
Thanks.
Let's take a look at what you want to talk about.
Yeah.
And we'll give you your own microphone.
Thank you.
Because we're all official like that. And we will jump in. Now, I think if I remember correctly, you were particularly interested in the social cues column. Is that correct?
All these years, I've had the luxury of hearing other people be put on the spot, and I could have the luxury of sitting there and thinking whatever I wanted to, but it's my turn to be on the hot seat with answering the social cues today.
Good.
So, yeah.
So now you looked at it, but you didn't look at the answers, right?
Exactly.
All right. So let's take a look. They're in the Sunday style section.
Yes. So it's the uncut ties that bind. Shall I read the question?
Yeah, please. Let's take which one. Now there's several questions, right? The very first one.
Let's do this one. My boyfriend of 8 months and I are deeply in love. He frequently talks of marriage and our future together. We're in our late 60s, but because of geographic distance, we only get to spend a few hours together every week and never at his house. Why? He lives with his cruel ex-wife who forbids visitors. They divorced 20 years ago, but continued sharing a home, quote, for the sake of the kids, who are now adults. They host their grandchildren now. My boyfriend wants to sell the house and divide the proceeds, but his bitter ex-wife refuses. He can't afford to walk away from the asset. He's everything I want, but this is becoming painful. What should I do?
Okay, so Paula, you set yourself up.
I know. My two red flags here are the fact that she focuses on the cruel ex-wife and that she says he's everything she wants. And I don't think those two things jive. This is going to be a terrible situation for her. Anytime someone focuses on that third party instead of the fact that her boyfriend isn't stepping up and putting this woman first, I think it's a recipe for disaster. So I think he needs to speak up.
Great.
Yeah.
Now, folks can see on the screen, and if you look on the monitor, you might catch the timer we put on. With 8 guests coming in, I wanted to make sure that we were able to fit everybody and a little bit of transition in between. But I put a timer on, folks. That's the only way to make sure we stay on schedule. So I want to make sure that that Pradnya is saying hello. Naomi Service says good morning from the Upper West Side. My mom says, hi, Paula. Nice to see you. Ken, I wondered why you were in New York this weekend. So all is revealed now.
Yes.
Patricia said, thanks for always providing amazing resources, which is incredible. This is what makes our show so special. And Ellen makes the most, I think, poignant comment. What a world we live in, where the first meeting is in a mask.
So true.
So we still have a few minutes. Was there another question you wanted to look at, or was there?
There's another story.
A story you want to tell, right?
Yeah. Flip the page over.
Sure.
Do it here. Having just organized a big wedding last May for my daughter, there's a very cool article about wedding favors and using books as wedding favors. And we still have leftover wildflower seeds from the choices we made. And so as a book lover and a bibliophile, I just thought this idea was so novel, pun intended. And some people did it different ways, but many people chose books for their guest or had a curated selection of 20 books that they put out at a book bar that their guests could take as favors. And it seems to have been a hit. And
so it was a book bar. It wasn't
a candy.
Everyone got the same book. They actually made it a little bit more interesting.
And one couple had a very small wedding and chose specific books for specific guests. So there were a couple of different ways to do that. But
great.
I just love that idea. Some of them bought the books from Goodwill Books that they didn't they kept recycling going. So I just love that idea.
Good. And you do, you talk about reading, you do a Friday reads. You post on social media, right? Do you only read on Fridays, or explain
7 days a week? There's a Twitter. It's an old Twitter tradition. I don't even know if it's still that in vogue, but it's a way that we used to always talk about what we were reading, and we'd use the Friday reads to highlight it. So
Got it. Paula Therese says, hi, Paula. Thanks so much for amazing reflexes, providing links to help flesh out the New York Times read-along discussions. Absolutely. Absolutely appreciate that.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do, we're going to allow Paula to be the first one to finish ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
Save us a minute. That's what we're going to be doing, is keeping an eye on the clock. So let's go outside. Let's see who else is available to join us. And we'll show folks the living room here in the Steadler's Inn. There's Steve, who's going to join us, another producer. We'll just take a quick look. We have some folks waiting. There's Steffen and Yoyce, Robert Anthony, checking out the paper, eating a little food. Good morning, fellas.
Morning, Neil.
We have Jenny Lazarus and Rose Horowitz somewhere in the back there. You see a little bit where that's our colleague Alina. I don't think you can see the view from here. But again, for folks, in case folks missed it, who's that? Who's that? Sree.
Hello.
Good to see you.
This is so much fun that you're doing this as a community read along, and thanks for.
Can you give him the mic real quick?
Absolutely. Take the mic here.
Let's make sure we can hear you.
Really upgraded this.
It's-
This is the
right?
Digimentors community read along, and there's
This is
Steffen.
Sree's show.
No, but this is your show, Neil. And I'm just looking out the window here. Let's show them this
Absolutely.
incredible view.
If we can get it real,
There you go. That
There we
looks
go.
really nice.
you can see the view out there. I
And,
shared a shot that Steffen took earlier.
and here are
um,
folks getting ready.
There's Alina and Andrew Lee is just outside the corner there. But that's the view outside the window. I don't even have to put Steffen's shot to show people. Hi, Alina. How are you? There's Andrew getting ready for his star turn. He'll be next after Steve.
All right, Steve's next.
Yeah.
Steve's a wonderful cook, so
Yep.
I believe you picked some food-related
I
items.
most certainly did.
All right.
Absolutely. Do
Absolutely.
you want to talk here?
Enjoy.
You want to go back in there? All right.
Let's
We
go
can do
back.
that. We can do that.
So,
So, yeah.
Steve, you live in Philadelphia,
I do live in Philadelphia.
right? And you're an avid cyclist,
I
and you work with the
I
Parks
am
Alliance,
indeed.
right?
I do work at the Philadelphia Parks Alliance as well. Yeah, thank you for mentioning. We've doing some great work there, supporting Philadelphia's parks and recreation centers.
Absolutely. So let's
You
go
know-
ahead.
You know that Philadelphia has 150 parks and 150 recreation centers, and that is more than the entire city of New York, all boroughs of New York combined.
Cool,
So
cool.
we're pretty proud of that.
So, but I meant to show Paula's Twitter cover page earlier. There's Paula. You can follow her at Big Green Pen. So definitely do that. And here's Steve's. You can follow him at Steve DeReeve.
But also follow me on Instagram at the
And
same
Instagram.
same one, Steve DeReeve as well on Instagram. That's where the more exciting stuff's happening. If you want to see my food pics, you'll find them on Instagram.
And that's what we put on your lower third, actually, Steve, to make sure that people
Excellent.
found you there, right here.
Perfect.
There's it. That's Steve DeReeve on all
right.
channels. So go ahead. What were you? I'm going to pull up the article.
Okay, this is great. So, it's great to look at what the New York Sunday New York Times. Obviously, there are things happening 7 days a week, 365 days a year at the New York Times. And what I really love are the food articles. For me, that's where I go first. And I happened to find this one earlier this week, which you can certainly still find. It'll be at the top of the food section, near the top of the food section if you go to the New York Times, which is called 18 Recipes You Should Learn by Heart. And the idea is that, you can find recipes online, you can find recipes in cookbooks, but hey, why not have a nice set of ones that you can just cook without even having to go to the computer or go to the bookshelf. So here are some ones that they suggest, and I just want to give a quick rundown of them.
Absolutely. Let's take a look since you have it on your
Yeah,
iPad. We'll
absolutely.
take a
We can do
look at
here.
some of the
And-
photographs.
And the first one is salt and pepper shrimp rolls. It's a beautiful photo and a neat article and a neat idea. It is a Chinese influenced shrimp dish, and which you can put on hot dog rolls. Their idea is to put it on top split hot dog roll, which I think is a great idea and much more Instagram friendly too. And one of the things I love about this is if you like fish, if you like shrimp, you should keep shrimp in your freezer, and you can thaw shrimp in a matter of minutes. And this is a pretty simple dish. Unlike most of these dishes, most of the ingredients are ones that most cooks would have already in their pantry. So that's a great idea. Love it. And one other great thing about this for the summer is, as you know, if you buy hot dog rolls and you buy hot dogs, whether vegan or beef or pork, you're not going to get the same number of rolls and hot dogs. So you have some leftovers. This is great. This dish would also be great over rice or over noodles, as opposed to over hot dogs. So the next one is roast salmon glazed with brown sugar and mustard. It's a simple dish with another item you can keep in your freezer, salmon. Another tip is to generally don't buy, in quotes, fresh seafood, because in most cases, unless you know exactly where it came from, it is actually thawed, and it is not actually, it has been frozen. So keep that frozen salmon. You can thaw that in a few minutes as well. Nice, simple dish, but a good one to learn. Next one is a cucumber salad with roasted peanuts and chili. Another fun, not so much a main dish, but a really nice side dish that would go with just about any summer meal. And another fun one, a little bit of heat to this one, and you can always add that. And even though I'm not a big peanut fan, but this one looks great. This one really looks good. Another one, I love this recipe here. I have not tried it. I read it, and it looks fantastic. Roasted squash with coconut, and it is great. They're actually, they suggest any sort of winter squash. However, they're picturing delicata squash here, which is my favorite for a couple reasons. Most one is you don't have to peel it. And you get to eat the peel, but also you don't have to peel it. So it's a real quick one to prepare. Fantastic idea. They're showing some curry leaves on top. You don't have to have the curry leaves. That's a nice thing to throw in there if you have them, but also pretty simple dish.
And Steve, I can't forget from the headline, were these easy dishes or summer dishes? What were
they're the dishes that you should add to your repertoire.
Okay.
Add your repertoire to there. The next one is a fun brunch dish. I mean, this is a great one for your weekend, which is the Dutch baby. And
baby.
Like a puffy pancakey dish.
Interesting.
And not too hard to make, but great presentation and a lot of fun. Love that one there. This next one looks like a great dish that I'm going to try here. Pork meatballs with ginger and fish sauce. And a fun little take on things there. The simple one, uses a lot of pantry staples, but also a bunch of fresh things you can easily find. And again, these things do not require, in most cases, finding a specialty store. Most of them, some of them might find certain items, like you might have to go to a specialty Asian store to find the fish sauce, though more and more grocery stores are carrying that as well too. So,
that's great. I want to let you know, Pradnya Halapur said, now I'm hungry. So you're definitely getting some people's attention. And Patricia said, hey, Steve, love the recipes.
Hey,
yummy.
Patricia, thank you so much.
One of your old friends from LinkedIn.
Absolutely.
I do want to clear up one comment my mom made. We caught Sree in the middle of eating when he came around the corner. So most people are masked here, but we are, of course, taking our masks off to eat, etc. No, he wasn't coming back from the White House Correspondents' Dinner, Mom. But we are being careful out here. One more recipe, Steve.
Okay, well, I'll give you two more. And
we have time for one more.
Okay. This one's a Mark Bittman simple braised potatoes, so we'll skip over that. It's a nice Mark Bittman, you're on there. And this one you really want to go to, which is it's a Lydia Bastianich dish, which is a classic marinara sauce. And really, marinara sauce, you should know how to do one of those by heart. And if you're going to do one from Lydia Bastianich. Absolutely.
Nice. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
And there are 10 more of them for you to explore in the New York Times. So just find online.
Well, Daniel is saying maybe Steve can do 18 video challenge.
There you go.
That's something to think about.
Absolutely.
So let's go ahead and keep close to schedule. We're going to invite Andrew Lee to join us, and I'll take the timer off. Andrew?
Hey there. So
co-founder of Digimentors, Sree's Digimentor, personal Digimentor going back how many years? How long have you known Sree?
Oh, at this point, since 1995. So
1995.
That's a long time.
That's when I graduated from college.
No, really.
So what? Now, there's a special section on museums.
Yes.
Today,
and it's pretty epic. So full disclosure, I do work with the Metropolitan Museum of Art and the Smithsonian on technology and digital projects. So do take that as full disclosure.
Absolutely.
But regardless of that, I think it's pretty impressive what the Times have done to the section. I don't know if you can see it in the camera, but it's really thick.
Yeah. Like the feel, I felt it earlier when we went through.
It's like the heaviest section pretty much. And what it really does signal is that these museums, after 2 years of being closed, ramped down, they're really trying to roar back. And what's really amazing about this section, this is almost like a meta observation, is every right-hand page is an ad, a full page ad. So this is a great example of how certainly this is sponsored content in terms of like half of it is ads, half of it is content. But it's really fascinating to see how each museum has put up a gigantic one-page ad for their content. So this is the Met. As you may know, the gala is coming up, but they have the Winslow Homer exhibit. And again, I'm talking a little bit from knowledge because I work with them. But MoMA, Museum of Modern Art in New York City. So some of the biggies, but also a lot of folks who are not the biggies, which is great to see that kind of diversity of different types of museums here. We have an American Natural History Museum. Again, this is in New York City. National Gallery of Art in DC, Morgan Library Museum. So some of these are, debuting new things like a new garden. This is Philadelphia Museum of Art. If you've never been, it is often overlooked. amazing art museum in Philadelphia, where the Rocky Steps are. Getty in Los Angeles.
I want to pause here for a moment. Southern Focus. This is the Ogden Museum. Strives to show that Southern art is not merely regional. This is by our friend Claudia Dreyfus, who was a guest on our show 2 years ago in the middle of the pandemic. So this is one of the pictures in the museum, a meta picture of someone taking a picture with an iPhone.
Yeah, this is great, and I like the fact that they're covering some of these museums that are not as well known.
Yeah, Persia, ancient Iran, and the classical world. This is from the Conservation Research Foundation Museum.
Yeah, so this is pretty amazing to see that kind of stuff here. Some of the pieces here are dwelling on museums trying to be more diverse, to include folks of color and more women, which I definitely see in the work that I'm doing as well. They've highlighted this Winslow Homer painting, an African-American individual on this boat surrounded by dangerous animals. This is a very famous one, which is a great example of that.
Now, Andrew, can you speak a little bit about the, how this section is received every year in terms of, what the section covers, what types of museums, what type of art? There's some criticism about the choices that are made, right?
Yeah, I think certainly it's easy to put it into the crosshairs of like, the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, right? The highbrow museums that are well resourced will be able to handle advertising and something like this, and they certainly have the resources to make it more well known than others. I'm glad that Times has tried to at least provide a balance of smaller museums trying to rise. Like, for example, they're trying to cover a lot of these Florida museums that are just starting to get more traction and more donations.
But are these focused on art museums as opposed to other museums?
That's a great point. I mean, I did notice that this is museums, but it really could be just titled art museums. The vast majority of the content here are art museums. There's a lot of really interesting stuff happening outside the art museum domain. So they don't even cover, really well-known things like the Air and Space Museum in DC just got a gigantic donation from Jeff Bezos. They're undergoing a renovation. What are the plans for that? It's one of those popular museums in Washington, DC. That would have been worth a piece if you were really interested in museums as a beat.
Sure. So,
not really criticism, but I wish they could have done more in covering museums broadly, because they're so beloved by Americans. It's, at least for the Smithsonian, it's part of our heritage. It's part of what we as taxpayers, want to see happen with our tax dollars.
We have a comment from Patricia. Congratulations to you, Andrew, for helping develop Digimentors with Sree. So certainly thank you for that. And Jonathan is saying a lot of museums are mounting crowd pleasers. Specifically thinking about the audience and what can bring the audience in. I'll say when we went up to New York recently, Emily, Pam, and I went to the Met and had a great time there. Saw the ancient Greek exhibits, the Assyrian exhibits. Pam, my wife is Assyrian, her background, so seeing the bull was incredible. The temple as well. The
Met is incredible to see as many things you can under one roof.
Great.
What we often call the encyclopedic museum. This is an interesting piece about Florida. As I mentioned before, in Florida, art donors go west. So showing how, Perez Art Museum is one of the more modern ones there. Really amazing stuff happening there in Florida. Although the New York Times editors might want to point out that Art Basel Miami should probably be Art Basel Miami. So I know that
where was this?
Autocorrect probably might have turned the Basel into Basil. But if there's a restaurant there, that probably should be called Art Basel.
Exactly.
That's a great piece about Florida museums, and it's just nice seeing the museums really coming out loud and proud with all this after 2 years of being in kind of dormancy. It's great to see.
That's great. Well, thank you very much, Andrew. And we have someone from LinkedIn. I can't tell who it is, but this is an innovative way to do the read along. Love that it's more interactive and there's more movement. So that's good feedback. It's hard to do a community read along. You have to actually have people together. I'm sure you'll be putting your mask back on when you go back.
Yes, I am.
But thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it.
All right.
Let's see who else is waiting in the wings. Again, this is a special Sree's Community New York Times read along. And I think that up next we have Jenny Lazarus.
Morning.
Jenny, how you doing?
Ya? Good to see you.
And you got your mask on your wrist
Yes,
You
I
just-
do. Should I? I'm happy to put it back
But why
on.
we put it back on? We
I'd
want to make
love
sure
to
that we're
do that.
modeling the behavior.
Of that we most appreciate.
Jenny is our VP of Business Development at Digimentors. You can follow her at I am Jenny Lazarus.
Yep.
This was not the first time I got to meet Jenny in person. I was lucky. She actually came down to DC a few months ago on a personal trip, and we got to spend some time together. She met Emily and my wife, so
Yep.
that was nice.
So
But
nice.
let's go and step in and see what you're looking at.
Absolutely.
in the paper.
So this morning I happened on a story that I was really caught my eye and really appreciated.
Oh yeah.
The cover of the Metropolitan section at the bottom, beneath the fold, about a YouTube polyglot who tries out his Yiddish in Brooklyn. And this caught my attention.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I grew up learning Yiddish. And by the time I was done learning Yiddish, I figured I was in a group of, 10 or so that still spoke Yiddish in this country. But this is, of course, not true because there are many more religious Jewish communities that do still speak this ancient language. So this caught my eye because it's a story about a YouTuber named Frankie Light, who is a polyglot, which means that he has learned more than, I think it's 10 or 20 languages. And this particular young Gen Zer, who is a Black man from, I think it's from Flatbush. He's from Flatbush. He grew up in a household with two deaf parents. So he's... Sorry about that.
Is that your watch?
Sree seems to be very interested in this story as well. So this young fellow grew up with two deaf parents, and so he spoke American Sign Language growing up. And this, he said, made him somewhat of an outcast in his community and amongst his peers. So he was always looking for ways to bridge the gap and, break through barriers with people. And so he used to sort of love to shock people. So he would walk into ethnic communities and just break out in their language and start talking to them as a way to get to know them. And so he started putting his videos on YouTube, and he has since received more than 7 million views. And these sort of this movement of polyglots is super popular right now, in that it's, entertainment for many as these people, absorb these languages and immerse themselves in these other cultures and languages. Page 6.
Now look to see. So here's the inside,
Here is,
the jump, and a couple of pictures here.
Yeah. And here is Frankie Light. That's his stage name, otherwise known as Frankie Smith. Sort of immersing himself in the Hasidic Jewish community. First, he was in Crown Heights among the Lubavitch community, but couldn't find anyone to talk to him in Yiddish because there's many other communities and cultures, and they speak so many different languages: Russian, some speak Hebrew, English, French, you name it. So he tried his luck in Williamsburg among the Satmar Jewish community, who are notoriously skeptical of outsiders and really like to keep their community, very closed and insular. And he finally found somebody to talk to him, another young Gen Zer from the Satmar community in Williamsburg, to talk to him in Yiddish. And all of a sudden, there they were, breaking down barriers between their two cultures. And not only did they speak in Yiddish, but then this young fellow from the Satmar community recruited this Frankie Light to play football with him.
Wow.
So this is, I just love this story so much.
So before we move on, got to ask, how's your Yiddish, Jenny?
Oh God, these days it's a little rustier. I don't get a whole lot of practice, that's for sure. I should be a little more like Frankie Light and head into those communities to practice my Yiddish a bit more. But it is a really, Yiddish is an amazing language.
Absolutely.
That is so deep and rich in historical context.
Absolutely.
And so I love this. Not only that, but this young guy, Frankie Light, wanted so much to learn Mandarin and felt as though he couldn't do it through language apps. So he went down to the, the community in Chinatown, and absolutely begged the owner of a barbershop for a job.
Wow.
And he kept turning him down until finally he hired him after Frankie was so persistent about getting a job there. And he spent a year working in this barbershop and came out a fluent Mandarin speaker as a result. And then also brought this barbershop, this traditional barbershop, into the generation, and really helped with their marketing and bringing them online and socializing them. So
Interesting.
It was a win-win for everyone.
Well, thank you very much, Jenny. Really appreciate
nice.
You joining us today.
And if I may, one more thing, hats off to my esteemed colleague, Neil Parrick, for doing such a phenomenal job.
Whoops, I got to turn that around and get the selfie. Thank you, Jenny. Appreciate that.
Every week with the New York Times Read Along. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. This, as you know, this has been a passion project for a number of years.
Yes.
Working with Sree. Shree's been hosting this for 6 years. I've been joining him for 4.5 years now. But we really do enjoy the show and put a lot of effort into it. It's a little bit different to do this in Hawley, Pennsylvania, as a community read along. It's a little bit just a different setup. But thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
And thank you for sharing that story about the polyglot. That was definitely interesting.
Nice to be with you this morning.
Great. Let's see if we can find Bob Anthony.
Let's see.
Bob Anthony is our next speaker. He's another colleague of ours on Digimentors, and he is the author of the Tech Tip in Shree's newsletter that comes out every week. So we'll say hi to Bob real quick.
Morning, Nate.
Bob, good to see you, sir. How are you?
I'm doing okay. As you know, I'm not a morning person. But
No.
But for something like this, I'll get up for. I mean, it's a really interesting take you're doing with the read along today.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Now, Bob is a great colleague, very active on social media. Last count on Pinterest?
1.1 million.
1.1 million followers on Pinterest. Very active on Twitter as well. But as Bob mentioned, he's not a morning person. He'll be up at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. I know because I see your tweets and I see the timestamps on them. So thank you for joining us.
It's not a problem. This is fun.
Good. So what caught your interest in the paper this morning?
Well, I mean, last week we've all been talking about Elon Musk and his proposed takeover of Twitter. And as you know, I'm both an old newspaper person and a tech journalist. So I'm thinking about it from both sides, from both the journalism aspects and just the geeky techie aspects of it. And he's all over the paper today.
Okay, so let's take a look. This is the story that Jenny picked out. Where should we go? The front page section?
Let's start with the front page section. Just to take a peek at the bottom of the page.
There we go.
Bottom
Outside Mogul, that was the story, I assume?
Yes, that's one of them.
Okay.
I mean, this story goes into the math, as you can see, of the Twitter deal. And apparently there are some little bumps in the trail should he not be as successful as he says he's going to be.
And did he rescind the offer, or was that because I remember seeing a headline that he was going to rescind?
Well, that's Elon Musk.
Yeah.
He's as mercurial as they come.
Okay.
He'll say one thing one day, he'll say something the other. It's still in flux.
Got it.
As of this Sunday morning.
Got it.
And the story that caught my interest was on the in the reviews in the opinion page.
Okay.
Written by, and I'm not going to even attempt to pronounce
Anand. I can't even pronounce the name, but a fellow South Asian, Anand Girihardas, with apologies, sir. The publisher of the Inc. newsletter and the author most recently of Winners Take All, the elite charade of changing the world. So what did he have to say?
Well, he takes an interesting take because even without Musk, Twitter has internal problems. There have been allegations of bullying. There have been allegations of strife among the staff, and you get the same thing you've been hearing about internally in Tesla. There have been racial discrimination suits. There have been other bullying type allegations in Tesla. So this, in this opinion, he's basically saying that Elon is coming from an organization which is sort of like Twitter anyway, And there's one particular quote, if you can zoom in on that I'd like to take a quick look at. It's over here.
The pull quote, or
no, just maybe
right
this
here?
graph.
Sure.
And I'm going to put on my glasses so I can read with you.
Okay.
Though you might think that having more than 250 billion, according to Forbes, and wanting to solve the problems of Earth and space would fully occupy someone, he seems to have a compulsive need to belittle people and to burp out his least considered impulses and stoke bullying by his legions of admirers in a way that both reflects and shapes how Twitter is. And if you go one more section down, if you've been paying attention how things work in our plutocratic society, this turn of events won't surprise you. The awesomeness routinely cosplay as firefighters. So I thought that was a really interesting take on Elon's proposed acquisition of Twitter.
He just last week, I think, he attacked and disparaged a senior Twitter executive, I think someone in the legal department, and immediately she got bombarded by trolls and other followers of Elon Musk, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you're right on point there, and it just shows you what type of venom, what can happen on Twitter in an instant. And I was thinking historically about this Twitter deal, and you think about Time Warner and AOL combining, that was a massive failure.
Yeah.
You think of AOL acquiring CompuServe, that was a failure because CompuServe had a pretty decent following, and AOL was just plain old different.
Got it.
So it's to me, it's something that we've seen before. We're at a point where we're wondering what's going to happen now. Personally, as a journalist, as a former newspaper reporter, former tech magazine writer, I don't think Elon Musk is the right guy to be trusting Twitter with. But in the words of Dave Chappelle, when Donald Trump got elected, let's give the guy a chance.
Got it. I want to go back to a comment that someone left on LinkedIn. As you can see, as our viewers can see, their name and profile picture didn't come in, but they said this is an innovative way to do the read along. I love that it's more interactive and there's more movement. That was from Jay Palaki watching on LinkedIn. So thank you, Jay, for that. And I want to also just go through, before I let you go, Robert, let's see some of the other comments that have come in, some about the museums. A lot of great discussion about the museums from Andrew was in here.
Yes, that was a very interesting take that he had.
And Rahadian says he'll catch the replay later. Stay safe and strong, everyone. That's a good reminder for folks. If you're joining us late, you can always catch the replay on the show right as soon as the show is over. Patricia said earlier, greetings, Bob. Thanks for sharing awesome tech article. So you can catch Bob's tech tips in Sree's Sunday newsletter, often on Sundays. And you definitely should check that out. Really appreciate the work that you do, Bob.
I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you. So again, my name is Neil Parekh, and I am the executive producer and guest host of the Read Along. We are doing a community read along today, which is kind of fun, having several Digimentors colleagues come in and highlight different articles that they are interested in. Bob, thank you. Let's see. I think we have Rose Horowitz slated to come in next. Rose is the founder of the Women of Follow hashtag and live stream show. Not Rose, Steffen.
Oh.
My bad, man. Steffen's standing outside in the hall. How can I forget you, buddy?
Good morning. Oh, okay.
You don't look anything like
Good morning,
Rose.
Yes. It's okay. Rose is a great dear friend and colleague, so I'm
Absolutely
fine to be called Rose.
I was getting ahead of myself.
It's okay. Good
Steffen,
morning,
my
Neil.
man from Ramsey, New Jersey, a social media and visual strategist, a former photo editor at the New York Times. You can find him at Spin It Social on all channels, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok,
Snapchat,
everything.
everything.
So, Steffen, let's take a look at some of the photographs in today's paper.
Okay, well, I already marked a few up here.
Good. Let's put that down.
I was really, I was just reading an important piece that Nick Kristof had written, actually.
Oh, yeah?
Not in the paper today, but what he had said is really important about what I'm going to talk about with some of the photos here. Is that, you know, he said something very prophetic on last Sunday's Reliable Sources telecast. This was about a month ago. I'm not sure people fully appreciate. It is the photographers and the TV journalists and video journalists who take so much of the risk in war zones. Those of us who have a notebook can hang back a little bit, he said, but photographers show such raw courage. And, you know, listen, many reporters are taking photos themselves too. So not discounting that at all. But the amount of bravery and courage and being in a zone, in such a dangerous zone, such as we all know what happened with Lindsay Addario about a month ago. I mean, we were all watching that, and it was so shocking to see her there and hear her yelling as that shelling happened and that family got killed in the streets. So one of the layouts here in today's paper is actually a layout with Tyler Hicks's photos right here.
Okay, let's check that out.
And Tyler,
this is an incredible story. The denial and grief as a sister's search ends at a morgue. It was very powerful and started on page 1. But talk about the photos.
Yeah, the photos, you know, Tyler is one of the most incredible war photographers out there. I mean, Tyler Hicks I edited his photos for years for the NYT Wire. And every time I would see, when you see a Tyler Hicks photo, you know a Tyler Hicks photo, you know. He's an incredible seasoned journalist, photojournalist and war journalist. He's traveled everywhere. He's been in Iraq and everywhere else. And these photos here just truly tell the story in 4 photos, let alone with the story. But the thing is that the layouts that the Times uses now are just so incredibly powerful. And a lot of this credit goes back to, and I'll say rest in peace forevermore, to Michelle McNally, who just recently passed away.
Okay.
Michelle was an incredible editor, executive, photo editor at the New York Times, who was somebody who cared deeply about her photographers and the photo community. Anyway, but under her reign and even before her too, things right before her, I'm drawing a blank, but things started to change a lot visually with the Times. The layouts became so much more powerful because listen, we know the amount of pages in a paper these days, except for the Sunday sections, are limited, right?
They've gone to full page photos on a lot of section fronts, on business, on arts and leisure, etc. So you're a fan of that?
Yes, because you know me, everything's visual in my world. And the bottom line is that we live in a visual society. We live in a visual world. People want to see these things.
Here's an example of the Sheryl Crow cover on the arts and leisure.
Right. So now
one good example.
I'm glad you pulled that up.
Yeah, sure.
Because there's that, and then also in the magazine here.
The magazine.
In the magazine, there's a story about Henry Winkler.
Yes.
And
yes.
When I grew up
the
on
Fonz,
the Fonz, right?
Hey.
But the portrait here is phenomenal by Oktar Yalkin.
Okay.
I'm very good with names, thankfully, so I don't butcher people's names. But
now, I want to just point out to people, we're going to move the magazine out of the window because you have the light coming in. The shadow is not something that's being thrown from here.
That's right.
That's the photograph itself.
That's
Henry Winkler.
And the interesting thing, I'm glad you did that because the photo taken of Henry Winkler has a lot of natural light and shadows on it. So anyway, but with these two photos parallel to each other here, it brings to mind the quote that eyes are the window to the soul. And portraits are something that are so important in many stories like these, especially because many photographers know when you're taking somebody's portrait, people are giving you that time. They're giving you that moment into their life, into their soul, and everything else. So you're not just taking their picture. You're being given a gift of time in that moment. And these portraits right here are indicative of what I just stated.
Absolutely.
But this photo of Henry Winkler is just what a superb portrait. Not to take anything about the one
all of it
of Sheryl Crow, but there's something special also about a great black and white portrait.
Sure. I was just showing the Sheryl Crow as an example of a full page section front.
Now, one of the other powerful layouts I wanted to talk about real quick in here. Well, first of all, here's some more out of Ukraine by a photographer named Daniel Readalong. Daniel is a great photographer, and the other thing is that what it's really showing here is what we've seen many images of, is the will and the power and the amazing spirit of the Ukrainian people, who are many just running out to do whatever they can, building bunkers, we've all heard the stories. It's incredible. So those are well captured there. But there's one that really stood out, which I hadn't seen for a second, which was out of Mexico. I just want to find this real quick because it's a really, really powerful layout, and it shows how the New York Times has just continued. Here it is. Is this it? Yes. So stone carvers make art bloom in Mexico's high desert. Now, this is one of the layouts. Look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7
A lot
photos.
of pictures here.
7 photos on one page. But this is a special page that they run every now and then called The World Through a Lens. This is how it's evolved so much. And
it's photographs and article by Walter Hodges.
Yep. And
you don't see that very often, right?
You see it more often these days than ever before, because many journalists and everybody, as we know, are now fully multimedia. They're doing the photos, they're doing the video, they're carrying drones with them. Several photographers, I think, in Ukraine have drones with them. Of course, it's really dicey over there.
Our friend Tammy Ellen said she ran into Henry Winkler on 3rd Avenue in New York City, and her mind totally went back to the Fonz. I guess that happens to Henry a lot. He just smiled back at me. It was amazing.
Well, it's just the one thing I wanted to
and we'll
saying about this
close on this.
Was that I'm a big fan, a big user and fan of angles and really using all of the elements around you to get a great photo. This layout is beautiful because it encompasses all of that. This first photo, though, is beautiful and well played at the top. The angle draws you right in. Plenty of background. The man's face is just so deep and telling. It's really a wonderful layout. And these photos, we should mention, as it once again were by Walter Hodges, who, by the way, as I think I'm sure, is a very big stock photography guy.
Okay.
So he's doing these feature stories now and just doing, an incredible job as a storyteller.
And I want to close by again showing this beautiful picture that you took this morning out on the dock right behind the house where we're staying at.
That's right.
Here in Hawley, Pennsylvania, at the Settlers Inn.
So
great light, great blue, great sky. So thank you very much, Steffen.
You're
really
welcome.
Appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you.
Always love talking photographs with you. And next time we can do it, we'll come up and get some pizza together.
Absolutely.
Just a question of when.
Absolutely.
Just a question of when.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Nice
Thank you,
seeing
Steffen.
Okay. Do I go to the next?
Yeah, we should be seeing Rose fairly soon.
Rose?
So let's
You're up.
say hi to
We're gonna
Rose
transition to
again.
Rose. She's coming.
As a reminder,
He's ready for you. Got your mask?
As a reminder, my name is Neil Parekh, and I am the guest host of Sree Sunday New York Times Readalong today.
Okay.
We are doing a special community read-along, inviting several of our Digimentors colleagues who are here for a retreat in Hawley, Pennsylvania. We just heard from Steffen Kaplan, and next up we have Rose Horowitz. Rose, let's say hi to folks.
Hi, it's great to be here. It's gorgeous.
Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank
Just
you.
want to fix your mask real quick. It's kind of a little cattywampus there. I think you're rushed putting it on out there in the hallway, but as soon as she gets that settled, Rose hosts her own show, Women to Follow, and it started the hashtag as well. This is now, I want to say, 3 years ago when we first did it, and I remember we had you on the New York Times read-along. One of the first times I was guest hosting, we had you as a guest to talk about that. So really want to appreciate you joining us. We'll just close the door behind you so that we can keep the sound down. So Rose, what caught your attention in the New York Times today?
A few stories. Nancy Pelosi just visited yesterday in Kyiv. I've been following on my show a lot of what's been going on in Ukraine, especially as covering the idea of what's happening with women in the Ukraine. And one of the stories that caught my eye was a really devastating story about.
Where is it, in the front page? This is
yes,
Steffen
front
left
page.
the.
Let's start in the front page.
Let's find
Yeah.
that right there. There we
Okay.
go.
A body bag and a sister in denial.
Okay.
And I just want to say a general thing is that, I have a lot of friends who are reading, who are saying you just can't watch the news. And a story like this makes you want to say, I don't want to see this devastating story. But I think that the important message that starting from the President Zelensky and the fact that so many Western countries have coalesced around Ukraine is because of this attention. And even if you don't read that story, you still need to know what's going on. And I just want people to be aware and focus. My focus has also been to try to spread the word about what different Ukrainian experts, academics, and journalists are doing to cover the war in Ukraine.
Great. So which article was it that you?
The article is called "A Body Bag."
Let's take a look at it.
Okay.
Pull it out.
Okay, and a sister in denial.
Oh, that one. Okay, that's right.
Yes.
So Steffen showed us the photographs from it.
Mhm.
What did you take from that specific article? This is a heartbreaking story, from what I understand.
Yes.
Right.
A heartbreaking story, and it's not a new story. I think that this story tries to really convey the emotions of what's happening there. So it begins with the wind carried the smell of death across the street. The body of the dead man, burned, mutilated, and barely recognizable, was taken from the refrigerator and laid on a metal gurney. The coroner smoked a cigarette and unzipped the black bag. And the story goes on, it's a beautiful spring day, and this coroner kind of tells the sister to take a breath and what to expect. And, it's just like this, he's been through this so many times, showing bodies to people. So it really, devastating. It humanizes what people are going through. And I think some of the reporting that I've been following have been women going out into the street, like in Kyiv, which has been hard hit. There's a woman, Maria Diva, who is witnessing and going out with her cell phone and just going into the streets of different towns and showing you not only the devastation, but also that life continues to happen. So she showed a wedding in a square in Kharkiv, and with the idea that, or show you children underground who sheltering, but they're getting art there, they're making pictures. That in the midst of this war, life is going on, and many people are impacted.
Patricia says, unveiling the truth of real life war in Ukraine. It's essential we stand together in the efforts for humanitarian aid. Obviously, couldn't agree with her more. And she offers her prayers for Ukrainian peace. Rose, you've certainly hosted a number of shows focused on Ukraine. So thank you for doing that as well.
Thank you. I hope people continue to follow, because it's really important to hear these voices. And there are young women there who are trying to do Instagram stories to say, well, what is Russian propaganda and why does it matter? And then these short, concise sort of history stories are available so people can share them. So the idea, they're trying to educate the world about what was not talked about very much after the fall of the Berlin War, Russian imperialism.
Absolutely.
So I think, it's really great to hear those voices. And I think that we should support as much as we can the voices of Ukrainians who are speaking out.
We've been talking with Rose Horowitz. I've been wanting to show everyone's Twitter covers as we went, but the transitions were too quick. So here we are showing Rose's Twitter with the hashtag Women to Follow. Pulitzer-nominated journalist, founder and host Women to Follow. Amplify women's voices on social media. Poet, gardener. Her pronouns are she, her. Thank you so much, Rose.
Thank you so much. It's really wonderful to be here. A privilege to speak to everybody, and an honor. And I need another cup of coffee.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. We'll catch up a little bit. We have Steffen Kaplan's cover shot that we want to share as well. So we'll get that out there. And we have Robert, his Twitter cover, Robert Anthony as well. and let me see. I think that we were before Robert. Trying to think back now to who we had on the program. That's right, Jenny Lazarus. I am Jenny Lazarus, and then of course Andrew Lee as well. I think we did take a look at that. So our next guest is going to be Apollo Yoyce Jones. His middle name is Apollo, and so we want to welcome him to the show. Again, if you're just joining us, my name is Neil Parekh, and I am the executive producer of Sree's Sunday New York Times Readalong. I'm also the vice president of events and communications at Digimentors, and we are thrilled to be here on a retreat. We're doing this as a special community read-along today to hear from some of our colleagues to get a different perspective on the news. So let's go see whether we can find my colleague Yoyce and see what caught his attention today. Yoyce, good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you as well. Hello, everyone.
How are you doing?
I'm well.
That's good. Good. Let's get you on camera and say hi. Now, you're also in Philadelphia. Steve was in Philadelphia as well.
Exactly. Yes,
right?
I am in Center City.
And you moved there from Jersey.
Yes.
And before that, you were in Las Vegas, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
That's great. So there's Yoyce. You can follow him on Twitter, YAJones3. YAJones3. So come on and join me inside.
Sure.
And we will check out what you were looking at. You mind closing the door real quick? Let's get the microphone to make sure we get good audio.
No problem.
I'm not sure if we had Rose's audio. So folks, if you couldn't hear well, my apologies. I didn't realize that. But I didn't see any complaints. So hopefully it was good.
Excellent.
So Yoyce, what got your attention?
So this morning I saw on the real estate section of the New York Times, you have a bunch of cassette tapes here that were found in a house in Fire Island. And it pretty much records a lot of the music and experiences of the gay community during the HIV/AIDS pandemic, which is still ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
And it also, you have snippets of people's conversations, and it recounts people's experiences during that time of just trying to find a space for relief from the grief and the heartbreak that that's often featured in our coverage of the AIDS outbreak and then the latter pandemic. And it also discusses some of the cleavages within the community when it comes to real estate ownership, and also the divide between the races. I mean, there, even within the gay community, gay white men tend to have more wealth, more power, and then there are very few people of color represented on Fire Island. So it's a pretty great in-depth look at the history of gay life on Fire Island, and then also some of the the areas that could see some improvement.
Have you been out to Fire Island?
I have not been out to Fire Island. When I was growing up, I read a lot of gay literature, and Fire Island would sometimes pop up. And then also, it's something that I must do. I also want to see P-Town, but also
Provincetown up on Cape Cod.
Up on Cape
right?
Cod, yes. And then also
A mecca of sorts.
It is a mecca of sorts. It's definitely a hub, like Fire Island, like Palm Springs, and a few other places around the country. And then additionally, there's now more emphasis on like Black Lives Matter, as well as transgender issues. And when I lived in Washington, D.C., I had a temporary job with Food and Friends, which was an organization that was set up for in the 80s to help gay men who had lost, jobs, and they needed food and, services. And then I also worked with the DC Anti-Violence Project, where I would go out at night on my bike and basically try to find, transgender women of color or transgender men or women who oftentimes were forced into the sex trade because they were not being hired in, normal mainstream workspaces. And so there we provided services if they were assaulted, got them legal representation, worked with the police, just so that they would feel that there was someone advocating and had their back. And so in this issue of the real estate section of the New York Times, they're discussing trying to raise the visibility of the transgender community within both the larger society and within the LGBTQ plus community.
Here's the inside. Now, this is a really well laid out piece inside.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say, Susan says good morning. Sounds like an exciting morning watching from Connecticut. Susan, we're running a ticker on the bottom to remind folks that after the show is over, you can catch the whole show on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on our Digimentors website just a few minutes after we're done. This has been a community read-along. We've had several Digimentors colleagues share articles that are interesting to them. We're here in Hawley, Pennsylvania on a retreat, and that's what makes it possible. But I want to show this 2-page spread. This is the jump for that story that you were talking about.
Right.
I mean, great photography. We're talking photography with Steffen just a while ago. 4 pictures across the top. Those are all the cassette tapes that were found.
Yes.
And then evoking memories of catharsis on the dance floor. So some really great shots here.
And then on
the left as well.
Definitely. And then on the next page, that's where you will see some of the additional coverage, talking about Black representation and Fire Island, where some people feel that they're not necessarily welcome. And so it's really good to see that people are aware of these cleavages even within the gay community for people of color as well as transgender individuals, while they're also trying to preserve the heritage of Fire Island and the Pines.
I'd have to assume seeing an article like this, feeling unwelcome at a gay haven for Black men who are gay, this must be very validating.
Yeah, I mean, and it also, in reading this article, it made me, realize how lucky I was growing up in Los Angeles, where I knew a Black gay man who went to Stanford. So I felt instantly validated, even when I went to Amherst College. But of course, that may, go, break along some class lines there. And there are lots of other gay Black youth or Latino youth or Asian youth who don't necessarily have mentors, if you will, sort of helping them merge into the community as they grow into adulthood. So it is really important that, the community is only as strong as its weakest members. And it's also, the bonds are only as tight as, we include as many different folks as we can.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So Yoyce, thank you again for joining us today. We really appreciate it. I want to share, Yoyce, I think I showed it right before you walked in, but just in case, this is Yoyce's, whoops, there's Rose. This is Yoyce's cover shot on Twitter.
Yes.
So we can see the artwork. That's now that explain the flag. That's the
now that
mix.
is, yes. Now, interestingly enough, some people may recognize that flag from the British East India Company, but for 1 year, it was the United States' first flag. And I believe it was from like 1785 to 1786 or 1786 to 77. But that was the, Congress's first flag that we flew during the Revolution. And then later on, we just removed the Great Britain canton and then placed the stars there.
That's great.
Yes.
So once again, thank you, Yoyce.
Thank you.
Really appreciate you joining us.
Same here.
And again, this is the first time I've known Yoyce online on Facebook for quite a while, and one of the regular viewers of the show. But this was the first time we had a chance to meet in person. So
definitely.
We really appreciate that.
Have a great week, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
So we're coming to the close of our special community and New York Times read along. I know that it's 9:43. We have our meeting starting at 9:45. So I want to just thank everyone for joining us. Again, we had a great set of guests today: Paula Kiger, Steve Taylor, Andrew Lee, Jenny Lazarus, Bob Anthony, Steffen Kaplan, Rose Horowitz, and you just heard from Yoyce Jones as well. Want to give a shout out to our production team: Paula Kiger, Steve Taylor, Julia Weeks, and Carla Baranakis. And of course, whenever we talk about Carla, we talk about the Local Connection newsletter. You can subscribe for weekly story ideas and pro tips. Best of all, it's free. It's put out by the Center for Cooperative Media. Check it out at bit.ly/local news tips, bit.ly/local news tips. Digimentors is our production company. We do social and digital consulting, hybrid and virtual events. If you're interested in having us produce a show for you, please get in touch with us. You can reach us at Sree at Digimentors.group or Neil at Digimentors.group. We'll put those emails right on the screen for you, right there. Again, Sree at Digimentors.group or Neil at Digimentors.group. We would love to work with you on an upcoming project. With that, we are going to bring this week's show to a close. It's been a great community read-along. Thank you to everyone who joined us, who was able to take the time on a Sunday morning. This is a very different type of show, a little bit quicker. Hopefully the timer wasn't too much of an issue, and obviously I did my best to keep things moving. But I want to thank everyone for joining us. Zet says thanks. And let's see, who else sharing some comments at the very end before we close. Patricia, thanks for the entire production team. Awesome meeting everyone on the screen. Absolutely. Jonathan, delightful program. Thank you. Therese, wonderful new approach to the New York Times read-along. Again, I would love this to be a regular thing that we do, but because we're not in person, we're still all virtual. Digimentors is around the country. This doesn't happen very often. So the last time we did something like this was 2018 after Social Media Weekend. My mom says, beautiful show. Thank you. Susan, darn, we'll be watching the replay. Absolutely. Again, as a reminder, please make sure to watch the replay on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on the Digimentors website. And Ellen says, thanks all. Nice to meet you. I do want to make one last comment before we close. I'm probably running a little bit late for the meeting. Hopefully they'll wait up for me. But next week is Mother's Day. So we are going to be taking taking next Sunday off. I want to give a quick shout out to all the mothers out there. Happy Mother's Day in advance. Sree and I will be spending time with family, of course. I'll be spending time with Pam, my wife, mother of Emily. And Mom, I know you're watching. Happy Mother's Day. I'm glad we got to see you a few weeks ago in April for Emily's birthday. And for everyone out there, please enjoy your weekend. Thank you for spending some time with us on Sunday morning. And remember, you can watch the show as soon as we're done on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and our Digimentors website. This has been a special Sree Sunday Community New York Times read-along, featuring several colleagues from Digimentors. Take care and have a good weekend.